If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price.
The year is 1976, a year filled with coups d'etats, civil wars, and insurrections across the globe. It's also the year Gail Coleman signed up for service in the United States Army. Miss Coleman would attend basic training at Fort McClellan in Alabama. Following graduation and into her service in the U.S. Army, she would be deployed to Europe, where she spent time in the Women's Army Corps. After 4 years in the U.S. Army and her time in Europe and back stateside, she would transition to working in HR at Camp Robinson in the Arkansas Army National Guard. At Camp Robinson, Miss Coleman served under several commanding officers and generals that left lasting impressions and friendships that still exist today. After 24 years of dedicated service, promotions leading to Sergeant First Class, she would retire in the year 2000. Watch her story of dedication, honor, and integrity on this edition of Arkansas Valor.
Hi, my name is Gail Coleman. I live in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas, and I was a member of the United States Army from 1976 to 1980, and then I joined the Arkansas Army National Guard in 1980 and retired in 2000. I enlisted in the United States Army in 1976. I went to basic training at Fort McClellan, Alabama. And when I enlisted, I was very fortunate to be a member of the Women's Army Corps. While at basic training, toward the end, we had a ceremony where we did away with the Women's Army Corps, and we were just the United States Army. From there, I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for my advanced individual training. It's like HRO, which is human resources, personnel, all that kind of thing. That was basically my job. From there, I went to Germany. I arrived in Frankfurt, Germany, stayed there 2 or 3 days, and met up with one of my members of AIT and basic training. She was Mahota J. Collins from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. She and I got stationed pretty close together. I was in Kaiserslautern and she was in Landstuhl. So we could see each other throughout our stay in Europe. I was assigned to the 94 Air Defense Artillery Group, which we were a Nike Hercules battalion, and we had isolated batteries all over Germany. While there, I worked with Colonel Richard T. Lambert, who was the brigade commander. Believe it or not, he was actually from Arkansas. Not originally, he was from Pennsylvania, but every month I used to mail a bill to Dover, Arkansas. Had no idea where that was. Come to find out, Colonel Lambert and his family own land in Dover, so I was mailing his payment for his land to Arkansas every month. I had a great command sergeant major. His name was Peter Morcon. He's from North Carolina. Wonderful individual. My first time riding a helicopter was in Germany, and I was fortunate enough to get to go with Colonel Lambert to visit our isolated batteries. That was a very depressing time. Those soldiers assigned to those batteries were isolated. I mean, purely isolated. The barber would come to them. They actually performed guard duty over the Nike Hercules missiles in Germany. So they were totally there to perform guard duty. They would get so many hours on, and then they would go sleep and then go back on guard duty. So it was a very, very depressing time for all the soldiers in our batteries. While in Germany, we bottled wine, and we put our unit crest on it. We made wine glasses, which I still have some. I came away with 5. One got broken in one of our moves. But that was a wonderful time. Met tons of people. Another friend of mine, Terry Kaiser, she was from Pennsylvania. We went to basic together, and then at AIT, she went to Fort Lee, and I went to Fort Jackson. So we kind of split up. But while I was in Germany, I get a message from Terry, and she's coming to Germany, and she's in Baumholder. So we're all 3 of us are really close. I still keep in touch with Terry. She lives in Pennsylvania with her husband, and we still communicate. She's come to Arkansas to visit me. We can't find Jerry. It was Mahota J. Collins from Oklahoma City. We haven't been able to locate her. The last time I heard from her, she was in Japan. And then she went to Florida, and I didn't hear from her again. So we've tried to contact her and can't find her, which would be great if we could. From Germany, I actually went to Fort Bliss, Texas, and I was assigned to the 976th MP Battalion. While there, and this is something else, when you're young, you don't realize the importance of things, but I actually got to meet 5-star General Omar Bradley twice. He lived there. He would come out during the holidays and greet the soldiers and meet them. Of course, being young, that was not important to me at the time, but as I look back, I just think, oh my gosh, what a wonderful thing to get to meet Omar Bradley. Of course, he has passed away, and I have since visited his grave in Washington, D.C. at the National Cemetery. But that was a great time. From there, I went to Fort Ord, California. I was assigned to the Combat Development Equipment Command. It was gorgeous. We were right there at Monterey and Carmel. It was wonderful. Met a lot of amazing people there. At that time, I was married, and my ex now got an assignment to Athens, Greece. We could not get a joint domicile, which meant that I would go with him. So I decided to actually get out of the active Army and come back to Arkansas. At that time is when I joined the Arkansas Army National Guard, which I was in the 875th Engineer Battalion in Jonesboro. I actually met a wonderful person. It's now retired Philip Rozier. He was a lieutenant at that time. So he brought me to Little Rock, and I actually got to work with him on the Wilson matches that occur every year at Camp Robinson. So while I was there, I met a lot of people. I met my best friend in the world, Sergeant Major retired Denise Johnson. She is just like my sister. We are still close. We still see each other. But I met a lot of great people along the way. There's a lot of people that I give credit for my career. A lot of us are less fortunate and don't get to experience, in my opinion, the things that I got to experience and basically took for granted. After I went to the Arkansas Army National Guard, CW4 Benny Wilson, who actually lived in Beebe and has since passed away, helped me in actually becoming active duty guard. And I started my first position active duty with the 148th Evacuation Hospital. Of course, a hospital, we had nurses and we had dental, we had lab, we had doctors, we had medical students. I met a couple great people in the 148th, a lot of great people in the 148th Evacuation Hospital. One in particular was Major retired Charles Paul McDaniel, who has retired and lives in Florida. The other was Colonel retired John R. Woodall. He retired from the Arkansas Army National Guard active duty, and he moved to Herando, Mississippi, was actually a junior ROTC instructor in the Memphis area. We still keep in touch. We're close friends. They're wonderful people. I left the 148th Evacuation Hospital and actually was assigned to the 212 Signal Battalion. We were actually a mobile subscriber equipment unit. I was at battalion headquarters and we had 4 companies spread out through Arkansas. During that time, I also met some wonderful people. One of them was actually Colonel retired Mark Stiles, who we are still very close friends, he and his family, Mana and the kids, and we are great friends. He's retired and lives in Little Rock. He has been just one of my rocks, actually. A lot of times without him, especially when my dad passed away, it was really hard. And so with Colonel Stiles and actually Command Sergeant Major Deborah Collins, you know, they helped me get through that rough time, because within 2 or 3 days after we buried my father, I had to go off to 2 weeks, at Fort Hood, Texas, living in a tent with the sand, and it was, you know, but it was a really rough time. We were alerted for Desert Storm. We stayed on alert until December. So during that time, we prepared for mobilization. Of course, Desert Storm was going on. We actually left in January of '91 and went to Fort Hood, Texas. There we trained to deploy, weapons qualification, everything we needed to know about getting ready to go over to Iraq. We were out in the field. The trains, if I'm not mistaken, were being loaded for our equipment to be shipped. And they actually, this was in, I believe, February, March timeframe, they ended the war. So we were actually told that we could get ready to come back to Arkansas. So I believe it was April, we actually came back to Arkansas. I stayed in the 212th a while longer. And then from there, I was actually transferred to the OCS Academy there at Camp Robinson. And basically what we did, it was an officer candidate school. And we combined with battle skills during my tenure there, and we also taught infantry, which is like 11 Bravo, Charlie, Delta, that kind of, we taught ANOC and BNOC, and their MOS, basically, there. That was a great time. It was a very good unit. I met a wonderful guy there too, and his family, which is Colonel Jerry Lynch, and he retired and actually died not long later of cancer. And he actually was from Russellville, Arkansas, and his sons are actually, or at least one of them is still in the military. There's so many people to name and to, but I hate I'm going to forget somebody. So it's naming these people, it's really hard because I know I'm going to forget somebody along the way. Colonel Mike Ross and his wife, Sergeant First Class retired Debbie Ross, meant a lot to me during that time. There's just too many to name. I don't regret my time in the military, except for one thing. While I was in the military, I became a single parent to Aaron, my son. Because of our work and what we were required to do, there were a lot of things that I missed with him growing up. There were things that I missed, like plays, things at school for mothers or that kind of thing, but we got through it. Actually, I'll go back a little bit. When I was deployed, I had to leave Aaron behind, and that was a hard thing, and the only place for him to go was to his father's. Right before we deployed, in November actually, he had a bicycle wreck and broke his jaw. So we had emergency surgery, and he had his mouth wired. So he left and went to his dad's and stayed there while his mouth was wired shut. So I didn't get to be there when he had the wires cut off or any of that. So I missed not having Aaron there with me that whole time. But, you know, when you're in the military, that's what you have to do sometimes. And I was very fortunate. There were a lot of other people that were in worse shape than I was. And that's sometimes what we forget is we complain about things we've done and what we've had to give up and what we've had to do. But there's always someone that has been in worse shape than you are. So I love my military service. Would I do it again? Probably not. But I'm very thankful that most people don't have that opportunity. And so I'm very thankful that I got to retire. And I've met so many wonderful people. Being a single parent and being in the military, it's very taxing. It requires you to do a lot, and there are things you have to sacrifice. And on my end, that was sacrificing a lot of things with my child. It's a really tough question. I will say that if you decide to do that and you're in those situations, I know it's a sacrifice. And plus, and believe me, my sacrifice is nothing. Trust me. There are so many people that have sacrificed a lot more than I have. But if that's what you want to do, in the end, I would say for most, the sacrifice was worth it. Okay? If you have that where, you know, you want to serve your country and the dedication, the loyalty, the esprit de corps, everything, it is in the long run worth it. I had so many close friends when I was deployed that left before me, and it broke my heart. I wanted to be with them so bad. I felt like part of me was if I could go too, then I could take care of them and make sure they were okay. My best friend Denise, she left prior to us deploying. She had already left and actually went to Kuwait. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, she has actually deployed again. In her second deployment, she was overseas and got really sick. I got a phone call telling me that Denise was sick. Her husband was with her. Actually, they were deployed in the same unit, the 1st of the 114th Aviation Battalion, and they were overseas. Denise got sick, and I got a message saying that Denise was sick. So I had the means to call over and talk with someone and actually get in touch and find out what was going on. Well, I found out through her husband that Denise was on a respirator and that they were going to evacuate her to Landstuhl, Germany. So it just absolutely broke my heart. I couldn't do anything, just walk around and just worry and go crazy. And I finally got word that she was in Landstuhl and that they were going to move her from Landstuhl to William Beaumont Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. She got there and she had to have 3/4 of her lung removed. And so Clayton, her husband, he was also a sergeant major. He's retired also. And so Clayton got to accompany her back to the States. And I was asked after about 2 or 3 weeks of Denise being in San Antonio if I could go and stay with her because he had to go back. So I went down to San Antonio, stayed with Denise and was her caregiver. And we saw so many people there that, yes, Denise was injured, Denise was sick, and she had a major surgery. But to see those young men and women, and they were very young, that had lost limbs, lost eyesight. They were just, it was so sad. It was very, very heartbreaking. I can't remember his name, but we met this one gentleman, and his fiance had come down to San Antonio and was with him. While they were there, they decided to get married. So Denise and I actually were invited to the wedding, and we went. And the guy that was injured with him was on a gurney. He couldn't walk. He couldn't talk. He had tubes everywhere. But they actually brought him to the wedding. So you go down there and you see that kind of thing, and it just, it actually just hurts you so much. But it also, for what they've had to sacrifice, and they're young. And, but it also, in a way, makes you proud of what these young men, maybe not proud's the word, but just realizes what they have had to sacrifice, and that's going to be with them for life. Fortunately, Denise got well after a long period of time. She got to be released from San Antonio, and she came back to Arkansas. And she has since retired out of the military and doing well. She still has issues, but she's doing well. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that she's back. I'm thankful that her and Clayton are okay. And I'm thankful that they're retired and they're at home and they can enjoy each other. Not really. No, not really. Not really at all. No, not really. Well, my brother Terry Ward, he joined the military when he was young. He chose to go National Guard. He was in the 875th Engineer Battalion, if I'm not mistaken, the whole time of his enlistment. You know, Terry is a crazy person. He's very patriotic. He loved being in the military, and it was really sad that he had to be medically discharged with a knee injury. I remember at that time, I tried everything I could do to help, you know, so that maybe he could stay and get that 20 years, but unfortunately that injury was too bad and he couldn't stay. I remember seeing Terry occasionally when he would come to Camp Robinson. And also my nephew Dwayne Pierce also was in the 875th. At the time Terry was. So I remember seeing them at times at Camp Robinson. Of course, Robin, my sister, she was active duty Army. She served in Hawaii more than once. She was in Massachusetts. I believe she went to South Carolina. I think she was in Texas. She was quite a, you know, at a few places. Joshua Pierce, who's in the Army, and he's in Florida, just got back from a tour in Afghanistan, actually. We have Taylor Pierce, who is actually in the Air Force, and he's in California. And then we have Michael Johnson, who is actually in Alabama at Fort Rucker, serving now, active duty. Excuse me, let me back up, Terrence. We also have a nephew that is actually in ROTC at Arkansas State University. He has he's going to get his college degree, and then he is actually going active Army. So he's doing the ROTC program there at Arkansas State University in Jonesboro. But at the end of his college, he will actually serve in the Army. When he gets finished, he will be actually an officer. When I talked with Michael, the last I heard, and I tried to change his mind, but he's going infantry. That's what he said right now. But of course, you know, this is the end, almost the end of his first year. So he has 3 more years to go. So he could stick with infantry or change his mind. So we'll just have to wait till that time comes. Richard Swan, yes, I know Richard very well. Matter of fact, General Swan has retired. I knew him from the 875th. When I first joined the 875th from the active Army, he was the company commander at the 875th Engineers. Actually, also, Colonel Don Sears was our administrative officer there. And his wife, Frankie, a colonel, they're both retired. Frankie I served with in the 148th Evac Hospital. Of course, Don I served with at the 875th Engineer Battalion. Lieutenant Swan moved to Little Rock as a captain. He was served at Troop Command and various other positions. Made Brigadier General, actually retired, and moved to Louisiana, and is working there as a civilian employee. I haven't seen him in a while, but I saw him at the last function that I went to at Camp Robinson, because I still try to do that. So yes, I know Richard Swan. I did. When I retired from the Guard as active duty, I actually went to work there at Camp Robinson, and I worked for the Professional Education Center, which is a school there. They teach logistics, they teach HR, security, recruiting, retention. There's numerous things that they teach there. It's a big school, and they teach all Army National Guard soldiers. They come there at one time or another in their career and get taught there at school. I worked there. I started out in the maintenance section as HR, not as a maintenance person. I was there for 2 or 3 years, I can't remember exactly, and then I transferred to Organizational Readiness and Training Center there at PEC. Worked there for quite a while, and then Colonel retired Philip Lipsmeyer hired me, and I went to work for him at Jackson Hall as his human resource person for all of the Arkansas State employees there at the Professional Education Center. I did that for quite a while. While there, I met Colonel John Jack Frost. He was the PEC commandant. And then when Mr. Lipsmeyer decided to totally retire from his Department of the Army civilian job, Colonel Frost took his place. So he was my supervisor. He and his family are great people. They live in Conway. He still works at the Professional Education Center, and I actually just saw them in April in Hot Springs. We still keep in touch quite regularly. Also while there, I also met Lieutenant Colonel Michael Olson. He came to work at the Professional Education Center there to help us at Jackson Hall. He is from Pella, Iowa. He is now retired as a colonel in the Iowa National Guard. And 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to go to Iowa, Colonel Frost and I, and Major Randy Davis, who is now Lieutenant Colonel Randy Davis, who also works at the Professional Education Center. We actually went to Pella, Iowa, and attended Colonel Olson's retirement there, and spent a few days, and that was great. And this just tells you how close we all are. My mom, your grandmother, passed away in December 23rd. Colonel retired Mark Stiles, who I served with at the 212 Signal Battalion and the OCS Academy, came to Mom's services. Lieutenant Colonel retired Mike Olson and his wife Erica drove all the way from Pella, Iowa, and came to visitation, attended the services the next day, and drove back to Iowa. Colonel Jack Frost and his wife, Candy, actually came from Conway and came from Mom's services. Of course, my best friend, Sergeant Major retired Denise Johnson, also came. And there were lots of other people that would like to have been there that are my friends. But of course, because of their location or the time, because it was Christmas, it was December 23rd. And then we buried her, had her services on December 26th, I believe. It was during the holidays and that kind of thing. Actually took the time out of their lives and actually came. That is just an example of their family. The military is your family, and they are there to help you, to protect you, to serve with you, to be your friend, to be your mentor. It's family, and it will always be my family. That respect I have for them, the thankfulness that I was brought into their lives and they were brought into my lives, it's just, I can't explain to you how much that all means to me, and that they are still a part of my family and will always be a part of my family. Yes, I do. My last day serving and my last day of service were two different things because I had leave. So, and you take terminal leave when you're getting ready to retire, any leave that you may have on the books. So, my last day of service, Colonel Swan, actually, Brigadier General Swan, he and my coworkers all went out to lunch at Gadwall's in Sherwood, actually, because that's what I wanted. Gave me my awards and that kind of thing. And it was very, very sad. Not during the dinner, because we have to show that we're tough. So we don't have to, but we're tough. So it was all after that was over with. There were parts of me while I was out processing that of the military that I was a little excited. But then there was also parts of me that I thought, well, what am I going to do? This has been my whole life. My whole life. So what am I going to do? But I actually moved from Little Rock and moved to Walnut Ridge for a year when I retired. Well, I was not accustomed to living in Walnut Ridge or Hoxie area anymore. So exactly a year from the time I got here, I went back to Little Rock and worked there ever since. I sold my house last April a year ago. I wanted to sell my house. My mom was sick. I wanted, honestly, which a lot of people won't believe that, but I wanted to move back here, to be around Mom. Was I there all the time? No. But I could be around Mom. So I sold my house and moved back here. And none of my friends are here, but I still have my military friends that I still keep in touch with, and I still go see. So it's taken a little bit of adjustment to live in this area, but, it's okay. That's correct. And I will tell you that Aaron and my son Aaron, he's in Jonesboro, and he's a manager at the Regions Bank in Truman. And he's my only child, and I have a granddaughter. Her name is Sally Turner. She turned 3 in January. They actually moved to Jonesboro in August before I moved here the next April. Opportunities opened up, and so they actually moved back, which, at the time, I wasn't even thinking about moving up here. Honestly, that really didn't. But now that I'm here and I've been here, I can see Sally Turner, and fortunately I get to see Sally Turner. And so that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. No, never.
Were you content?
Never. Because the enlisted soldiers are the ones that keep those officers going. So, no, that never entered my mind. Was I ever interested? The answer is no. If it wasn't for a lot of enlisted soldiers, a lot of officers would not have made it, because that's just the way it is.
So they had good teams, basically.
Sure they did. Sure they did. And that's what a good enlisted soldier does. Unfortunately, I have not. I did participate in different activities. Colonel Mike Ross and his wife, Sergeant First Class Retired Debbie Ross, you know, they're big. They're really active in the veterans, VFW, American Legion, that kind of thing in Little Rock. So I did attend a few functions maybe over the years, but no, I have not. Why? I really can't give that answer. Why? Just hasn't done it. Just haven't done it. I have actually, you know, there have been times I've volunteered my time when I was in the Little Rock area, that kind of thing. But here, I really am not sure of what's around here in this area, actually. So no, and that's one thing that would be a good thing for me to do, actually, and I haven't done that yet. Oh my gosh, I'm sure I did.
Did anybody pull pranks on you? That's another
Oh yeah, there was always pranks going on. Colonel retired Anita Long, I can't think, Deason. Her name is Deason now. Colonel retired Anita Deason. She actually works for Bozeman's office. I've known her for years and years and years. We've been to AT together and had some really good times with the 212th at 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 Fort Chaffee. Yeah, there were pranks. Some we might not really want to talk about on camera, but yeah, there was always stuff going on, especially at night when we actually got off work and were in the barracks. Yeah, it was pretty interesting at times. It was when I was active duty Army, I went to Germany, and I was in Kaiserslautern. Of course, when we were there, we could travel. So, you know, I went to a lot of different countries, but basically it wasn't in a military capacity. It was basically on our weekend, yeah, where we could go on trips, and, you know, the military would sponsor trips, and we would go to we went to Switzerland, France, Luxembourg, Belgium, just all kinds of different places, which was great because I got that opportunity to do that. A lot of people don't get that opportunity. So that also was a great experience that I got to travel some in Europe and do that. Of course, also when I was in the 148th Evac Hospital, I actually went on a med-ready exercise to Panama. And I was in the 148th Evacuation Hospital. So a group of us, dental, doctors, nurses, that kind of thing, we loaded up and flew to Panama City. We stayed there a few days at an Air Force base. And then we first started out in trucks. I believe it was trucks. And then we got in a helicopter and flew to an isolated place. And actually, they treated the Panamanians. And some of those people had walked for days to be able to see a doctor or a dentist. We lived in a schoolhouse for all the time we were there. Had no windows. It was a mud floor. Saw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients. I have a picture of that with a little girl that I met there. And but we did that, and that was very eye-opening. It makes you think, oh, I wish my child could see this. He doesn't have it so bad compared to what these people do. There was a creek there. So if you got a bath, we went to that creek and wore our shorts and T-shirts and washed our hair and took a bath. We had water buffaloes where we couldn't drink their water or eat their food. So we had our snacks that we took with us, and then, you know, the military stuff, and that's what we ate. And We drank water from a water buffalo that was treated with the tablets, chlorine tablets, I believe. Can't remember. We have to look, but anyway. And that was a real experience. And then, so when we got done with the exercise, and we were still there a couple days, we went downtown Panama City, and Captain Box, who was a dentist from the northwest part of the state, and a group of us all went down, and they had, we got briefings on if you go downtown, don't wear jewelry, don't have your wallet in your back pocket, don't wear your watch, that kind of stuff. So we all went downtown, and we were huddled in a group walking down the sidewalk. Next thing we know, Captain Box had been robbed, and they took off down an alley, and they had stolen his keys out of his front pocket to his vehicle, which was back at the airport at Little Rock, his house keys, everything, and any of a little bit of money he had in his pocket, they took it in a second and was gone. Well, we started yelling for the cops, and they wouldn't help us at all. They have to buckle down, and they have to be able to do their job, and they have to perform. It's not just go to work, 6 to 5 or whatever, They have to do their job, and they have to care about their job, and they have to be able to pull their weight. I say that if a female soldier wants to be in a combat unit, in a combat MOS or branch, and they can, that's what they need to do. More power to them. Yes. Now, there are some women that are not cut out for that. Would I have wanted to be? Not necessarily, because bless their hearts, they've got it really bad. I mean, I think about things that were bad for me, but when you talk about you're in a combat unit, and they're a lot of time, that's exactly right. It's a lot different. But if they can do it, I say go for it.
Hello, and thank you for watching Arkansas Valor presented by T-Ward Media. I am so excited and so happy to be able to bring you these stories of our Arkansas veterans who have sacrificed so much for you and for me. To be able to share their experiences otherwise not found in textbooks or history books even, but for them to share those stories with us so that we can pass them on to future generations so that they may understand the sacrifices that they made for our freedoms. I am so happy to be able to extend this opportunity to you and everyone else who takes part in the Arkansas Valor experience to share these stories with those of the ones you love and to share them with the veterans in your families. And when you share them, if they too want to talk about their experiences, we invite you to contact us at the information below. contact@twardmedia.com. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and we hope to talk to you soon.